Hello, BookTube. We're down here in puppy territory to see if I remember how to do a shelf tour. Not the library tour of Doom. The library tour of Doom was a lot of fun, but it bothered me in one sense only, which is that it was one book at a time. And didn't have the headlong feeling of a real shelf tour, something where any video might have something that someone might be interested in. And I want to see if I still have the knack for a shelf tour, just in case I want to do one in the future. Once Project Harrigan, the total rearrangement of my book collection, is well and truly done. I can't think of a better way to commemorate that rearrangement, the completion of Project Harrigan, than to do a library tour. But I wanted to give this a try first and see. So we're going to go through just one shelf of books and see what we find. And I intentionally went down to the bottom, down to the floor of a little visited bookshelf, just so that it wouldn't be high traffic items, stuff that I already know backwards and forwards. So what is the first one that we've got here? We'll try and keep this brief as well. Okay, great. This is by Craig Williams. This is Roman Homosexuality, Ideologies of Masculinity in Classical Antiquity. And that, of course, is Antinous, the poster boy for Roman homosexuality. And this is terrific. It doesn't belong on this shelf. One of the goals of Project Harrigan will be to finally organize my entire library. As opposed to, I think I know where that is, and I spend the next 45 minutes looking in my best 3 guesses. This would go on a shelf of serious Roman history. This is a serious, really engaging, well-researched work of Roman history. There are a few of them, I bet, on this shelf. There are a few on every shelf. They should have their shelf of their own. And this is a study of, how the Romans were homosexual, how they thought about it, what they thought about it when it happened in others and not in them, the extent to which we can know how it was legally codified, what social parameters. Typically, in the 300 years before this book, the most popular way to do that was to study the literature. But I would much rather know more. I would much rather know a little firmer ground than just what it is in plays and poems. So what is this next one? Okay, more Roman content. This is Princeton University does these little collection of snippets from classical literature, repurposed as a sort of self-help manual, how to be a bad ruler, how to have a good death, how to live a content life. This is How to Be Content, and it's by Horace, the Roman poet Horace. And this is all just, it's bits and pieces from his stuff, but it's original translations with pretty good annotations of one of my favorite Roman poets. To get that in the mail, just thrilling. Then what is this next one? Is really thin. Okay, this is Neil's story. This is Animals in the First World War. I think this was sent to me by one of you. Is it a note that's inside it? Let's take a look and see. Yes, this is a note sent from one of you. Okay, so this was a gift. It's a tiny little thing. It's just a pictorial record of the various animals that were in the front lines that even served, not just the countless horses. It's good that they get a spot on the front cover, but every other kind of animal too. Of course, completely unethical. These animals weren't serving in the war. They had no idea what a war was. And in fact, a great deal of the death that was meted out to the horses in the First World War was even more grotesque, humiliating, and protracted, agonizing and terrifying than the deaths that were meted out to the humans involved. At least the humans knew why they were there. The horses had no idea. Some of the pictures are heartbreaking. None of the heartbreaking pictures are in this book, but some of the pictures that do exist are heartbreaking. There's a little jerboa. Look at that. Look at that thing. Interesting. Okay, but history, and they aren't all going to be history on this shelf, and they should be. They should be. The purpose of Project Harrigan, among other things, will be so that my library makes a little bit more sense than it does. It doesn't really make any sense at all now. Let's see. What's next one? Oh, great. Oh, fantastic. Okay. This is the finished copy with the deckled edges of Inside Story by Martin Amis, which is called a novel. It's, of course, not a novel. There's nothing in here that's made up. To quote me sainted ma, if he jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge, would you jump too? Just because he calls it a novel doesn't make any difference to me. We had this little discussion about YA fiction just the other day. I don't care what a writer or their publicist or their publisher decides to call something. I care about what it is. But this moved me a lot. It was, I think, it's the thing by Martin Amis. I've never really liked this author. He's been in the ascendant for my entire critical career. It's by far the thing that I've liked the most by him. And this copy is full of tip-ins. It's full of every piece of notice that this thing got. I put them all in here. Then this next one is a romance novel. This is an advanced reading copy from November of 2018. This is The First Earl I See Tonight, part of the Debutante Diaries series. For some reason, I'm not really sure why. Maybe Sarah would know from The Bookish Knitter. This is St. Martin's paperback. For some reason, their ARCs, their advanced reading copies, the review copies of their mass market paperbacks are in trade size. I have no idea why that is. This did not come out in this size commercially in America. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe, this is all set up. Maybe the template is all set up for the trade release overseas, and that's where the readers' advanced copies come from. I don't know, but this shouldn't be here. Obviously, it should be with romances. Okay, this is from April of last year. This is Good Boy, My Life in 7 Dogs by Jennifer Finney Boylan, in which the author does what many dog writers have done over the century and just look back at her life over periods that were governed by the particular dog in that life, or more than one dog. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Very, very heartfelt, incredibly moving, because, of course, My Life in 7 Dogs means deaths. Right? I mean, you could conceivably, in your middle age, write a memoir of My Life in 7 people and they'd all still be alive. But 7 dogs? No, they're going to be dead. They're going to be, almost all of them are going to be dead. That's just the price of admission for books like this, is that they age 10 times faster than we do. So you have to steel yourself for that if you read a book like this. But it's worth it in this case if you do. Okay. All right. Do we have a pub sheet on this? I'm sure this came from a publisher. Yes, indeed. This came from Little Brown. Was this before we were speaking with each other? I got this from Little Brown in January of 2013. So yes, before we were talking to each other. This is by Laura Santoro, and it's The Boy. A very unflinching little novel about a woman who is not a youth, who falls in love obsessively, head over heels, compulsively in love with a 20-year-old boy. Books like this, there's also a wonderful novel somewhere in this collection called A Much Younger Man that does the same thing. And the books like to refer to the male character, the male protagonist, as a boy, but actually, they're young men. But the author pursues, okay, what would be true? What would actually happen if you just lost all romantic control over someone a good 15 years younger than you? What would happen in the eyes of your family? The woman has family, in the eyes of your friends, in the eyes of the world. I think it's fascinating. It's a dynamic that's not well enough, that's to my mind, not intelligently enough done widespread in fiction. Okay, then we have Anne Pippin Burnett. This is a translation of the Odes of Pindar in its beautiful trade paperback. Just lovely. I can't remember if I reviewed this or not. When did this come out? This is from Johns Hopkins University Press, and it came out in 2010. I might have reviewed this. I know at one point I was, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I'm a reviewer. I'm a book reviewer, and I've been for a long time. And for 10 years, I was the managing editor of an online literary journal that I helped to found called Open Letters Monthly. And I remember at one point I did a long, loving, detailed review of some Pindar book. But it ended up, when you're going over 2,000 words, it's always going to be about the author and not about the book, usually. And I think that's what I did. If I remember to find it, if it's in any kind of shape, if it's still findable online, I'll link it down below. Okay, here's Eleanor Catton's book, The Luminaries. This is a UK trade paperback. I used to have many, many copies of this thing. It was a kind of a running in-joke of mine that it seemed for a while there in 2016 that every booktuber that I looked at, every video that I watched, had a copy of this thing in the background. It's a big, fat novel set in New Zealand that is, I thought, really, really good. But the reason that I used to I made a point when I saw it in the background of so many of those videos to buy a copy every time I saw it at a used bookstore or at a thrift shop, so that I ended up having 4 or 5. This is the one that I ended up with. Once that joke had run its course, I got rid of all of those hardcovers and other paperbacks and just stuck with the UK trade paperback. What is this? Oh, okay. Do we have a pub sheet on this? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. What we got here? This is from January of 2020. Boy, we didn't know what was coming in January of 2020, did we? I guess there had already been hints, but wow. This is by Christopher Bolin, and it's a beautiful crime. This is a finished copy hardcover of a crime novel that's mostly set in Venice, which is why I kept it. It's why I read it and liked it. Because those of you who are new to the channel, I used to live in Venice, and I have a soft spot for it. It is my second favorite place that I've ever lived in the world. But another good example. I should have a whole half a bookcase of Venice books, and this should be one of them. There should be a shelf on that bookcase for Venice fiction, and this should be on there instead of them scattered everywhere. What is this next one? It's an advanced copy of some kind. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. This is from May of 2020, when unfortunately the nature of the year 2020 was obvious to all of us. This is by Barton Gellman, and it is Dark Mirror, the story of Edward Snowden. And the whole episode of what he did, why he did it, where he is now, what are the ramifications, all laid out. A very, very good narrative history. I reviewed this for somebody. I feel certain that I did. But that could be true about a lot of these things. I have this. I also have, forget the name of the author, How America Lost Its Secrets, which is a very different take on the Edward Snowden story. Very different, very antagonistic towards Snowden and towards what he did. I have both, but you'll notice I don't have them together. Okay, oh no, the infamous. Okay, this is YA fiction. This is What If It's Us by Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera, in which two gay boys, they have cuffed pants and skinny jeans, so you know they're gay. It's sort of a fascist costume. If you don't wear it, you get ostracized. They meet cute in the big city at the post office, and things go from there. Things progress from there. Fairly by the numbers, very slang-choked and easy YA romance happens from there. I swear, at the 2/3 point of this book, I could almost see the two authors saying, well, aren't you going to pat us on the head? They're both boys. As if that weren't fairly old hat by the time that this came out in 2016, I think. 2018. Even worse. I thought it brought out the worst in both the authors, and yet I cannot shake it. I cannot shake it from my mind. I cannot shake the possibility that I might be just getting it all wrong. It's massively popular. It has a sequel. Anyway. Oh, great. Okay. All right. Here's another hardcover with from 2018. Yes, 2018. 2020. This is Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stewart. This is the hardcover, which has a ton of things dipped into it. Those of you might not know what I'm talking about. When I know that I'm keeping a book, or even sometimes when I don't think I might be keeping it, if I find any reviews or pertinent articles of any kind, instead of keeping the magazine or the newspaper, and instead of keeping them in a filing cabinet away from their target, I instead trim them, fold them, date them, and put them in the book, so that I know exactly where they are. And this Shuggie Bain got reviewed everywhere. I reviewed it myself. Again, I will try and leave a link to it down below. But I loved it. Thought it was fantastic. Okay. All right. This is one of the only examples anywhere in this library of a print-on-demand book where I just did the whole print-on-demand back before there was, a thriving subtropical genre of print-on-demand. Back when you had to go to a bookstore and just get the thing printed on demand, but there weren't any print-on-demand publishers. This was a long time ago, and this is fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. I wish I had it as a real book. Don't know if it really does exist as a real book. Probably it does. This is Brian Jones, Domitian and the Senatorial Order. A really, really good, you can always tell by the muscular footnotes at the bottom. If the footnotes are actually talking directly to a Latin scholar, that's a good sign for Roman history. But it's written really well too, and it's about we write off Domitian as just this slavering lunatic, this psychotic ruler, but he nevertheless ruled for a while, and he had a Senate to deal with. This is just a tremendously intelligent assessment of that based on the first-hand records that we know. And again, not to beat on a dead drum, but it should be on a shelf of Roman history with Roman homosexuality and a bunch of other Roman books. It shouldn't be just floating around free. Okay. This is by David Dowling. This is A Delicate Aggression, of the latest in a small cottage industry of books about the Iowa Writers' Workshop in Iowa City, Iowa, on the banks of the Iowa River, which is one of the oldest and the most famous writing workshop in the world. A long list of luminaries has come out of the workshop, and it holds a huge amount of sway. And this is a book about the internal politics and whatnot. Okay, all right, well, we just saw this book just recently. How it got on this shelf, I have no idea. I don't have a new arrivals section at all, so it could get here as well as anywhere else. This is J.H. Adamson and H.F. Follen. This is Sir Harry Vayne, a biography that I just found at the Brattle the other day of the second governor of Massachusetts, and a very interesting figure in the whole interregnum and restoration English history. It's a biography. It's not anything thematic or anything other than that. It's just a biography. It belongs with biographies instead. It's all by itself here. Okay, this is another one I just found recently. This is Sean Dunn that edited this. This is the Ireland Anthology. A really packed anthology that has just everybody in it. So, one of the things I like about this anthology is that the editor, Sean Dunn, is not afraid to go for short excerpts in order to cram in as many people as possible. Ireland is a comparatively small place in the world that has generated a comparatively enormous number of incredibly talented writers, dramatists, poets, essayists. Tough to get in any one anthology, and one of the ways to do that is to very judiciously cut so that you have a lot of people crammed in. It takes a brave editor to do that. Okay. All right, this next one is another thing that we saw comparatively recently on this channel. I don't know how many of you would be paying attention. This is a volume called The Bullfinch Front. It's a commemoration on the centennial of the Bullfinch State House. So there you have the front piece. It's from 1898, and there you have a picture of the Bullfinch State House, which does not. It looks like that still, but it's crammed all around by buildings on all sides. It doesn't have open fields around it anymore. This is not a narrative. It's just a collection of the speeches and addresses that were done on the occasion of that centennial. The type of thing, these speeches and addresses, a lot of them won't be in any other kind of narrative history. And this volume will not turn up anywhere except at the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston, so I grabbed it. Okay. Then these next two are two volumes in the of history of the Boston Athenaeum, an old private library here in Boston. The one is the Athenaeum Gallery, 1827 to 1873, and then there's a volume on the Athenaeum Centenary. We've seen both of these on this channel. The Boston Athenaeum Centenary has a ton of granular detail. Who was at what meeting? What was paid in dues or book allotments or whatnot? Incredibly detailed stuff that if, for instance, someone wanted to write a modern, big 800-page history of the Boston Athenaeum, they would need these volumes. That material doesn't exist anywhere else. I put them both together. I found one much later than I found the other. I put them both together, but are they on a Boston history shelf along with the Bullfinch Front? No, they are not. They should be. They absolutely should be. And then finally we have this big thing, the Nazarene Gospel Restored, by Joshua Podro and Robert Graves, which is it's not really the restoration of the Nazarene Gospel, but what it really is, the thing that makes it so much fun, is that it's an endless textual discussion of the New Testament by Robert Graves, which any of you who've ever read his book, The Greek Myths, or even slogged through his book, The White Goddess, will know that although he's nuts when it comes to textual interpretation, he's really, really entertaining to read. I've heard about this book forever and ever, and then I found a copy at the Brattle for $1 and grabbed it right away. And I was very happy at that find just for myself, because I love reading New Testament exegesis of any kind, even if it's a little bit out of there, a little bit out of left field. It was only later that once I hauled that book that a lot of you emailed me and said that it's extremely expensive online. That it was a good find at the Brattle. I agree with that completely. But anyway, there you go. That is this shelf in 20 minutes. There's a whole shelf of this bookcase. I'm going to put all these things back, but very reluctantly, because they're not going to stay where I'm putting them. It's ridiculous. This shelf is a perfect example of why I need Project Harrogance. Perfect example of why I need to rearrange all of this stuff. Because at the spur of the moment, if I were to need, what would I need? The Gelman book on Edward Snowden. On the spur of the moment, if I were to need that, there's only a 1 in 10 chance that I would think about this shelf. Instead, I'd be looking at every shelf, turning on all the lights, running all around like that has to stop. And a thorough library rearrangement and also de-sizing would be the perfect way to stop that. But anyway, I'm glad that I still have the knack for a bookshelf tour. But I'm going to wrap this up for now and put all these back. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.